catch me.
Is that your best Star Wars post, Chris? Hands up.
Yeah, this movie is Star Wars.
Maybe pull the lightsaber out of your belt.
I should tell you, my girlfriend's father is getting John Dykstra, who did all the special effects for Star Wars, and this is an original Star Wars cruise ship.
Wow.
Which was just sitting, you can see the image actually blend through the back.
Oh, wow. Wow.
For so long, and she raided his garage.
First question is, will Chris make it out of the room?
Oh yeah, why would I say that? Why would I say that? Hey, zombies, live flesh. This doesn't even...
It's not speaking to the room, it's speaking to our camera.
Oh, it does actually talk to your camera. So you heard all of this.
Yeah, that's all right.
Okay, good.
But if you didn't use it, it would be great, because we don't like him very much.
First of all, I want to say I support Harvey Dent. Press conferencing. Well, does anyone have any questions? Or do you want to just talk?
Sure, I got a question.
Sure.
It's not really Star Wars related, but it is Chris Hardwick related. I know you're very busy with the Nerdist. I know you got a lot of stuff going on, but is there any possibility, and have you ever been approached to host Attack of the Show on a permanent basis?
Well, there was a brief conversation, but it's just unfortunately impossible with because I'm doing Talking Dead and then the Nerdist TV show for BBC America, and I'm shooting a pilot for Comedy Central in about 6 weeks.
So it's a time.
So it's a time issue, and also, you know, when you work with companies, if you already have a couple of jobs, they don't want to take you in like 4th position, which means that their priority is like kind of at the bottom of the queue. And a show like I love Attack of the Show, and I always loved working on that show.
Sure.
But it's very time consuming because it's a 5-day-a-week show. So it makes it difficult to really do anything else. And but I loved working there so much, and I loved every time I got to guest host that show. And I think, it seems G4 is going through a bunch of changes anyway. So I mean, I don't have any inside information, but I don't know exactly what Attack of the Show is going to look like next year. It might look the same or it might not, but I don't know. Now that Kevin's gone, and Kevin really, I don't know how you follow Kevin on Attack of the Show. I mean, that show was so much his point of view that even if I had the schedule to be able to do it, I'd be really nervous about it. So I think someone also said a couple years ago, they were like, "Oh, if Joel leaves the soup, would you want to take over?" And I'm like, I don't know how you take over when they've done it beautifully. It just
forged their
yeah, exactly. And it's like, "Oh, hi."
But you have a similar sensibility, I would say, to Kevin. I mean, not the same, but there's a similarity in in so many ways. And by the way, how dare him have dreams and aspirations to leave the show?
Well, Kevin's been with that network in one form or another for like 10 years. I mean, He was there at Tech TV, and then he was there for Screensavers, and then he was there for Attack of the Show, and so, he really put in his time, and I know he loved working there, but it is schedule-wise, there just isn't a lot. I mean, that show is very, very demanding. So I was sad. I was actually really bummed that I couldn't do it, because my urge would be like, take every job you can, but particularly Attack of the Show, because it's such a fun group of people, and obviously the content is easy for me because I know it all, and and I had done it for so long. But I don't think I'm
So still guest hosting here,
Yeah. I mean, I might rotate in. Who knows if any of these other? Well, I know Talking Dead's coming back, but if the other shows don't come back, then maybe in 6 months I'll be like, hey, that Attack thing. Maybe I should on this.
If I could ask you, if you can answer it, is there anything here at Celebration that you wish that you haven't seen that you were maybe hoping to see, like anything, any sort of product development, program development, any news, anything?
I haven't actually been able to see any panels or anything, and I didn't get to see Kevin Smith's. I'm sure, but walking around the floor was, I mean, I got to see droid races,
right,
and the I got a friend of the Legion plaque, and I got to take a picture with the Rancor Monster. And I bought a bunch of stuff, bought a bunch of T-shirts. I must have bought like 20 patches for different things. I don't know why. I've never sewn a patch onto anything in my life, and the patches are they're like shiny, and I just buy them.
Right.
You know, I got stuff from Think Geek. I got stuff, you know, a bunch of T-shirts, and so I had a really good experience. And then almost for like a second, I was like, maybe I should finally get a tattoo. This is the place to do it.
All right. I had the same thought myself.
That's a forever thing.
Right. And is there anything you can tell us about the pilot you're working on for Comedy Central?
Yeah, I mean, you know, truthfully, I wouldn't say that tonally it's too dissimilar from Attack. But you know, it's just more just me, basically. And so, I mean, you know, Comedy Central doesn't really have like a sort of like a nerd news wrap-up show.
Right.
I mean, I think the closest thing they have to anything in our culture is Tosh, but he's just making fun of. I mean, it's not really. He's not of this culture.
Right.
And I think in school would have been the person to knock our culture into the mud and laugh while shouting loudly.
Right.
So I kind of wanted to. And that's nothing against Daniel. It's just that's just his point of view. So I really just kind of wanted to bring that kind of a vibe to Comedy Central and see if there was some comedy to be had.
Yeah.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, go for it.
Given that nerd and geek culture is somewhat acceptable now in the mainstream media, do you think we're in a bubble and it could burst any time now?
I don't think. I mean, you know, I get asked that question a lot, and I don't ever think because, you know, what it means to be, I think, a nerd in our culture is that you will try to understand something with like granularity that most people will not. And so, you know, yeah, I mean, we might be in a time where there are people who are sort of on the fringe of like, hey, look at me, I'm a cheerleader and a nerd. But, you know, as soon as that may not be trendy anymore, there's still a huge group of people that will always support that culture and still always, you know more than anyone else about whatever thing they're into. I just think it means like, you know, maybe there won't be Glee at Comic-Con, which is fine with me.
Back to genre stuff.
Yeah, maybe, but you know, the one thing that I think is good about it is that, you know, because the culture is kind of blown up mainstreamy, you know, we get a Joss Whedon directed Avengers movie. That never, I mean, I think, you know, if you remember superhero movies from the 80s and 90s, they weren't amazing. So, you know, now we actually do have the power to get really fantastic television shows and really incredible films. You know, I think there's a pretty good upside to it. You know, even though, you know, people have been going to Comic-Con in San Diego for, you know, 15, 20 years, they're like, grumble. I remember when it was just comic books, you know. Yeah, it was, but it was just comic books and no good comic book movies. So, you know, I don't think it's a terrible thing. I don't think the bubble will ever burst in that way because there's a core group of nerds that just aren't going anywhere. Yes.
A Star Wars question, back to it. You said your girlfriend's father did special effects?
Yes.
Tell us about him.
John Dykstra, he's just a special effects
Is he why you're here?
No,
cool connection.
John only just did the first. He only did Star Wars. He didn't come back for Empire or after that. So, but you know, he's just kind of a legend in the special effects business. He's done pretty much most big movies that you've seen. John and Spider-Man and X-Men, and like he's pretty incredible. And fortunately, he just doesn't really care that much about crew shirts.
Right.
Because I got this one, and then she also got me a Star Trek: The Motion Picture crew shirt. So it was a pretty good. It was a pretty good haul.
Did you know what he did when you met her, or was she?
I
just
did.
An added bonus?
Yeah, no, of course I knew. And it's not why I went out with her, but
It was all
but you know, when you're making a list in your head of like check, big check, you know.
Absolutely.
You know, John's away working so much of the time. I mean, I've hung out with him several times, but you know, he travels so much working. He's in England or Vancouver or India or wherever. But he's a really cool guy, and we've had many conversations about. I just kind of pick his brain about like the days of just practical effects, and you know, he gets really excited to talk about that stuff.
do you feel about practical effects not really being a part of the scene anymore?
I think it's a shame, but I understand it from a film production standpoint, that it's faster and easier to manipulate.
Right.
But at the same time, whenever I see practical effects, I automatically feel a sense of like, oh, I really want to see more of that. I think now it's more of an art form than a necessity to be able to use practical effects. But I like films that correctly use both.
Right.
Where like things that should be practical are practical, and things that are CG or CG.
Right.
I think a healthy mixture of both is really good.
Time for one more. One more. Are you ever planning on bringing anything Star Wars related into the Nerdist channel?
Oh my God, I would love that.
Yeah, what what's your end goal for Nerdist as well? I mean, you seem to be just growing and growing and growing. So, I mean, aren't you afraid you're going to get exhausted?
Listen, part of me wants to enslave the jock masses and have them toil on our underground sugar caves. That's a Simpsons reference. But I would love to do something Star Wars related on the Nerdist channel, and we've established a really great working relationship with Lucasfilm with Course of the Force. It went surprisingly smoothly for the first year, and it went really, really well, and we raised enough money to grant like 1,000 wishes for Make-A-Wish, and so hopefully we'll be able to go even bigger with it next year, and just between Celebration and Course of the Force, working with these guys has been so much fun and such a dream that we'll always try to figure out ways to work together, and I get the sense that the feeling is mutual, so we will continue to try. I think it's just a question of, can we find something that makes sense for everyone? Can we find the right idea? So we'll definitely keep trying, and hopefully we'll figure it out.
Just one more quick one.
Okay.
Just on the way out. Kevin Smith was talking the other night about how deep his Star Wars roots were to his childhood.
Sure.
Can you talk to your roots and whatnot?
Yeah. I think I blogged this for StarWars.com. I saw Star Wars in the theater. I'm old enough to have seen that. I remember it so clearly. My dad and I dropped my mom off at the airport to go visit. She was going to go visit my grandparents, and we went straight to the theater, and we saw Star Wars. And I remember standing on the seat of the theater seat because I was tiny, and and just like seeing Luke and Leia swing across everything about it. It took me weeks to process it as a little kid, and then I had every action figure. I still feel like R5-D4 gets bum rap. Like he almost, I view it almost like it's a documentary. Like he was almost the droid,
Right.
and it didn't work out.
Right.
And if you read any of the wiki, like Wikipedia or any of them, you find out that his personality that's been assigned to him is that he's just sort of this like jealous, always almost makes it kind of a droid, and it just made that scene even funnier to me in retrospect. But I mean, I had every Star Wars toy, I saw every film numerous times, so yeah, I mean, it's just as much the same as Kevin. It's just such a part of my DNA, and got me into this whole world of sci-fi fantasy from the earliest ages. So
Cool.
cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you for your time.
Thank you guys and ladies.